Good morning. Hello. Thank you all for showing up, for being here today. To start, let's just take a breath in together into this collective energy pulsing through us right now. Let's just inhale and release. Letting ourselves land in our bodies, letting our feet land on this land in this moment in time. I want to start by saying my name. My name is Anna Ruth Hall, and I am right now sitting on Tongva land, the land that I was born and raised on, and I am a descendant of West European lineages, Scottish, Irish, English, also Polish, Russian. I don't know the full details of my lineage, of my history. I'm learning. I'm constantly discovering, and I am the daughter of Holly Wolfley, who is also a Californian raised on Tongva land, and also the daughter of Philip Baker Hall, who was raised in Ohio on Erie land. The Erie were completely decimated, and a tribe of various Iroquois Native Americans. Also, still learning about the details of them. So, why am I here today? Why am I coming on live to talk about this? I want to just dive right into the quote I put on the thumbnail of this video, which is from Lila June, who is an indigenous environmental scientist and activist and poet and speaker and just really powerful human. The Lila June quote, that as European Americans, our task is to honor our ancestors and honor the pain that we have yet to truly process. So just feeling the weight of that and the importance of that sentiment in this time in our collective consciousness and shift. Why is it important to honor our ancestors? Why is it important to call in our ancestors? Well, because the alternative is shunning them, locking them up inside of ourselves, pushing them away, and not acknowledging the truth of the history of our own lineages and of this country. And clearly, as we can see what's happening all around us right now, that's not an option anymore. Denying the truth is no longer an option. What this country was founded upon slavery, upon genocide, upon colonization, what this country was founded upon is coming up right now, is coming forward. It's coming out to play in the real world. And so how can we be supportive in this? I think it's really important to have a fusion of external action and internal action. And I'm feeling it important to voice this right now because I found that as a white person who is constantly learning, constantly listening, intending to be an ally, and not always knowing how, I found it unsustainable for me to act from a place of guilt or shame. Unsustainable and also ultimately unhelpful. Because when doing this allyship work from a place of guilt and shame, I am not coming to terms with the deep parts of myself that are wanting to be heard and felt and seen. And so when I say let's honor our ancestors, I think that something that can come up is, how do we do that? How do we honor our ancestors? One, when we feel ashamed of them, when we feel completely disgusted by them, and two, when we don't know who they were or the details of their history. And so I want to invite us right now to just sit with some of the words that I'm going to bring up because I think that a way to call in our ancestors is to name the archetypes that they've embodied and to feel what emotions that brings up for us. Because these emotions that come up, the guilt, the shame, etc., is a vehicle to create lasting change in a country that has had an incredibly deep history of trauma. So if you are feeling willing and able, I invite you to close your eyes with me, to tune into the body and just feel what happens in your system as I bring up these words. Genocide, conquistador, slave owner, master, rapist, colonizer, KKK. So just feeling that. Just feeling that whatever comes up for you is important to feel into. And I completely feel how deeply challenging this can be to feel into these parts of our lineage that we have distanced and detached ourselves from and othered because we've been told that these people are bad. And yeah, they've done some really painful, awful, unthinkable things. And now, more than ever, it's incredibly important to call them in, to learn from these people in our bloodline. And I believe that we came here to allow our ancestors to speak through us, to completely own these people in our lineages in order to right the wrongs. I believe that that's why we're here, so we can free ourselves of any guilt, any shame, anything that we're holding on to that allows our physical system to cave in, that keeps us holding tension in our body. Because only if we harness that freedom, that flow in our own bodies, if we are able to accept the darkness in us and the light, the darkness, the shadow in our own lives and also in centuries, millennia before us, only then can we truly act from a place of love and be the allies that we came here to be. Because for myself, I stand for equality and equity, and I stand for the light, the beauty, the being that is in every single human, that is in every single animal and plant. And we cannot simply stand for the light and the beauty in everyone and deny these parts of ourselves from the past. So, okay. Yeah, there's a lot here. There's a lot also in terms of uniting sort of new age spiritual communities with social justice communities. And I've found, having been involved in both of these communities to varying degrees, that in a lot of new age spiritual communities, there's an emphasis on oneness without with sort of a denial of the reality of what's happening in the 3D right now and the history of what has happened. And then in a lot of social justice communities, there is such an emphasis on action, on outward focus, and less of an emphasis on the internal work. And I believe it's completely crucial for both. And so I also want to bring up the Healing Justice podcast. It was formerly known as that. It's now known as We Are Irresistible. And just one quote that I have in the description here, the first one is, How are we living out the liberation we're trying to create in our bodies? How are we living out the liberation we're trying to create in our bodies? The quote is by Miski Noor, who's an organizer and activist, a Black woman. And I think it's just really important to remember that if we want liberation, if we want this system to shift, then it is a fusion of how our bodies are functioning, our minds, our souls, our hearts, and the external world is really a reflection of that. And so I think if there's nothing else that I am transmitting today, I want it to be the importance of both of those. And so the story of the oppressor is intrinsically linked to the story of the oppressed. And so, speaking for myself as a white woman with privilege in this society, my story as someone complicit in this system of modern day slavery is intrinsically linked to the people who are victims in this system. And I think that I want to acknowledge that this system that we're in is that we are complicit in it without our choosing. And that is that's a lot. That's painful. That's scary. That's that we're complicit in something and we feel like we can't escape from it. And I think that's where this powerlessness piece comes in. When we're feeling powerless right now, we're feeling powerless because we know our Black brothers and sisters are in pain. We know that they are dying on the front lines, and that doesn't resonate with my internal world. That doesn't resonate with what I stand for. And yet, what can I do? And so that's what I am hearing, and that's what I'm feeling from a lot of people around me. And I just wanted to mention some actions that I think we can all take in order to in order to fuel this shift, because these protests, these riots, the looting, everything that's happening, the fires, this is not an isolated incident. It's not happening now. It's not out of the blue. It's like deep, unfathomable, unimaginable anger and pain and trauma coming up to play. It's redemption, it's reclamation, it's truth telling. And a message that is coming through is that how can we let ourselves ride the revolution, ride the wave of change that is already coming? There's a tsunami and we are in it. And the more we resist it, I think the more painful it is and scary it is for us, because I know that fear is something big that's pulsing through the collective, whether it's fear for your literal life, if you're out on the front lines, or if it's just fear of sharing your voice as someone who cares a lot but doesn't want to say the wrong thing. We're all experiencing fear on our different levels and different ways, and it's all very valid. And this message of letting the revolution come. And I have been feeling this a lot in my own system, my own life, of there's change happening in the world, and I am listening, I'm riding that wave, and I'm wanting to share my voice. And so maybe a bit of tangent, but just that this is deep and ancient. And so how do we let the change happen? Because we can talk about change all day, and I talked about change all day in my college classes, and I've been talking about just the reading all the things and all the the getting the magnifying glass out and all the sources and all the change. And then now, like, something big is coming. We've known that capitalism is not sustainable, that capitalism is modern day slavery, the prison system is modern day slavery, and if we want justice, then we have to see systems fall, not just different leaders in office. This is much bigger than just getting a different leader in office other than our current president. It's so much bigger than that. This whole system needs to fall if we want to create something that's genuinely in line with love and equality and truth and harmony with nature and with our systems. And I know it's scary and I have no idea where it's going, but the message I keep feeling is just say yes. Just start saying yes. Just start saying yes to the change. Lean into it. The fear, when it arises, say yes. Say yes. You know, and I feel so grateful to be in the position I am, and for my positionality too, as being able to share my voice with the only fear that would come up is not a fear for my life. Like how much gratitude I have for that, how much privilege I have to be able to share my voice without fearing my life, without fearing my life, without fearing my life. My life, my sacred life is protected, and I'm so grateful for that. And so, actions that we can take. Action looks different for everyone. So, number one, just starting with the feeling your emotions. That is the internal work. That is the incredibly crucial work that will allow us to sustain change. And having conversations with family members. The change that has occurred within my nuclear family, my mother, sister, and father in the past few years, is I've deepened my own understanding of my privilege and anti-racism. They've deepened theirs, and these conversations are vital. And so I think that's a great place to start, with friends, with family, with whoever. Also, another action can be creating art. I think that as we are feeling all these things, whatever it may be, shame, guilt, anger, creating art is such a beautiful vehicle to be able to process that. And well, a few things with art. One, as we create, we free up more energy in our systems to be able to show up for people who we want to see succeed. And we're able to show up for our Black brothers and sisters more when we are allowing our energy to flow, and creating helps with that. So that's one reason why creating is awesome. And another reason is that art can be activism, whether it's a song or a poem or a sculpture or gardening, cooking a dish. Maybe you don't consider yourself an artist, but we're all creators. So, just finding some form of art that you want to bring out. I think that so much of our energy can be used up by holding everything in, and I really resonate with that and know that one of the just holding it all in. And so art, creating, super important. Another one, listening. Just pausing to listen. And I feel very humbled every time I listen, every time I turn on the news or see someone sharing their story that is drastically different from mine, a story that I will not understand. Just listening. There's so much wisdom in deeply listening without the need to defend or protect, just listening. That is a huge role, as I believe anyone watching this who is not Black and specifically white is just listening. That's where it starts. That's where understanding starts. That's where equality starts. And I know that oftentimes listening, especially as empathic beings who are energetically sensitive, listening can feel just like receiving all of this anger, because especially if it's a lot of anger, which is justified anger, it can feel like, oh, I'm just receiving all of this anger and now it's in me and now I'm imploding and I'm making myself small because I'm afraid and I feel guilty and I feel upset. And that is so real. And I want to invite us to, as much as we can, listen and not personalize the depth of pain that someone else is going through. To listen and not personalize the depth of pain that someone else is going through. Because we've all experienced pain. We've all experienced trauma and suffering. We know that. That is true. And there's this beautiful balance and dichotomy that right now is the time for specifically the story of Black America to come forward. The story of people who have been systematically killed and oppressed for the entire existence of this country and before. It's their time to be heard, to be listened to be understood. And so that's what my intention again is with saying all these actions and creating all these things. It's to be in the listening. It's to be in the supportive role. But to get there, to truly get there, to be able to show up, it requires us to care for ourselves. It requires us to call in those ancestors. Because so many things. Okay, well, yes, another note on calling in our ancestors. As we call in the colonizers, as we call in the conquistadors, the slave owners, the ones that we want to push away, as we call them in to reconcile the truth now through our words, deeds, and actions, and our breath, we can also begin to call in our ancient ancestors. And speaking for myself as someone of Western European descent, my ancestors whom I do not know, but I know that they were earth people, that they came from the land, that they had wisdom. And so in my consciousness, in who I am now as Anna, I have the consciousness of the medicine women and medicine men, as well as the conquistadors and the murderers in me. And so as I'm calling upon one ancestor to heal their deeds through me, I can call upon the ones who knew the ways, who knew the wisdom, who knew the trees, who knew how to go outside and pray to the moon, who knew how to drink from a fresh stream and knew how to create food that nourished their family, who knew how to give birth, who knew how to honor death, who knew how to show up for their family and not cause pain to their children, who knew how to listen. And so I'm grateful to be able to call in all of these ancestors, the ones that I don't know yet, and the ones that I've begun to tap into. And so that brings me to this final action, which is our breath. Physically breathing deep. Staying present with ourselves. It is our duty, it is our task to show up in our own bodies and no longer escape from how we feel. Because when we escape from how we feel, we perpetuate the cycle of violence and trauma and pain and fear that has gotten us to where we are today. So as we stay present, it is staying present with this collective fire, leaning into this fire, stepping into the fire, stepping into the stories that we don't know, stepping into the learning, the grief, the trauma, the truth, and stepping into our own bodies, stepping into our heart space, stepping into the earth, stepping into our emotions. It is so important that we keep caring for ourselves. And that brings up the Audre Lorde quote that caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. Audre Lorde, thank you for those wise words. So, let's see. I believe I'm almost through with everything I wanted to convey. Also, something else we can do is make an offering to the earth with our Black brothers and sisters in mind. And that can be an offering of a piece of our hair, an offering of our blood if we're a person with a womb, an offering of food, an offering of a leaf of a plant, or something intentional that we want to offer with the intention of healing, of reparations, of showing up. So I think that's something we can do. And oh yeah, I know also this whole conversation, mainly I've been saying white as I identify and black, and I know there can be a triangulation that happens with other people of color and all of the people who have such deep histories of trauma and repression and genocide as well in this country and around the world. And so I'm not intending to belittle those stories. I think I'm framing it in this way simply because of my positionality and knowing that my words are welcome to be received by anyone who resonates. So, yeah. I think that the final thing I will say is that if we want justice for George Floyd, if we want justice for Trayvon Martin, for Rodney King, for Emmett Till, for any Black brother and sister who has suffered or died at the hands of police brutality, then we are deeply responsible for owning the parts of our lineages that got us here today, and that if we want to create this lasting change, it is a fusion of showing up in the external world in whatever way we desire to, through monetarily donating or through going to protests or posting online, as well as doing this internal work and calling in our ancestors and making peace with their actions. And I just believe it's so important to keep reiterating that fusion and to continuously come back to our breath and stay present in every moment with ourselves. All the healing work that we've done up until now has only prepared us for this moment, I believe. That's what I'm feeling in my own body, in my own life. So to close, I just want to do a little prayer that whatever wants to come through with this shaker. And also I want to go ahead and read a poem by Adrienne Marie Brown. The author of Emergent Strategy does really awesome work. I'll read the poem after this little prayer. So wherever you are, just take a moment to breathe deep. Let's honor ourselves for showing up in this lifetime, in this body. Thank you, ancestors, for bringing me here to this moment in time, June 3rd, 2020, on this Wednesday, on this beautiful day here in Southern California. Thank you for getting me here now. I'm listening. I am listening. I'm learning. I'm listening. I feel my red heart yearning for change, for change, for change, for change. Right the wrongs of the ages. Let's right the wrongs of the ages. My breath, my breath, my word, my body, my tongue. I am learning. I am learning. I am learning how to love. Thank you for bringing us here. May this prayer reach all of my Black brothers and sisters and siblings who are fearing for their lives, who are feeling anger and pain and justified rage at this system that does not allow their bodies to feel the love that is the foundation of our universe. May this prayer reach them. May this prayer reach back in time to all of my ancestors, the conquistadors and the medicine women. May they hear this prayer. May they hear this prayer. May the people of this land, the Tongva, may they hear this prayer. May the plants and animals, may the water, may the sunshine, may the moonlight receive this prayer of love, of equality, of truth, of truth. May truth continue to arise. May we continue to walk the path of truth and bring this country deeper into alignment with love. And so this poem is called For George Floyd, Fire by Adrienne Marie Brown. Have you learned nothing from sunsets flaming the entire sky with soft edges, fuchsia, periwinkle wisps, taut and temporary, nature taking day, inhaling light? Have you learned nothing from autumn, blazing the earth with gorgeous death, burnt orange kiss, red, fragility reaching, last chance for the sky, floating, releasing, exhaling life? Have you learned nothing from war? Inferno, dappled, muddy hose water, puddled, green-edged flames of files, photos, losses are battleground wherever you make us defend life. Have you learned nothing of justice? The deep, ever-changing heart must breathe. The fire in our veins needs oxygen. Do not unleash us if you don't want to burn. We'll keep choosing life. Have you learned nothing of love? On your knees, but we, the ones praying, let us never give up on each other, even when grief is the only match for the pyre. We honor life. It is the end of a day, a season, a way, and era. The change is tumult, terrifying and beautiful. We will never be convinced to be expendable. Alchemize every death system, liberate our divine lives. Thank you for that message, Adrienne Marie Brown. Thank you all for tuning in, for showing up for yourselves today as we learn to listen, as we learn and remember how deeply precious Black lives are, how deeply precious the lives of people of color are, how deeply precious every life is. And we let this moment in history unfold. We're in this together. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. Keep feeling. Keep breathing. Keep loving. Keep coming back to our heart. Thank you.